Really?
All right, 7 o'clock, we'll call this meeting to order.
Yeah,
I'd like to let everyone
that's
know the
pretty
board does not
transparent.
break the zoning ordinance, but does have authority to grant relief from more practical difficulty
It'll
or
be cool when it's all
unnecessary
done.
hardship will result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variance requests require a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variances. Non-use variance requests require a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. Please note that any order of the board is valid for a period of 1 year. If you would like to request that the board table adjourn your case due to the absence of full board, which tonight we are down 1 person, even though we have all the chairs filled, we're actually down 1 member. Please inform the chairperson immediately after the public hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit comments to 3 minutes. All righty. As stated before, we're down 1 person. And then for the minutes for November 9th, 2023, is there any amendments and or motions? Yes, Mr. Evan?
I'll move approval of the minutes.
Is there a second? All right. Mr. Moore raised his hands. Or one way or another, he raised his hand.
Fair enough.
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. On to unfinished business. Case number 23-11-22. Yes,
I'll do a summary.
all right, no problem. Mr.
So,
Murphy.
at last month's meeting, per the petitioner's request, the board had postponed this item. So we'll go back through it to refresh your memory of what the request is. This property is larger in size. It's 12,300 square feet, which is almost a third of an acre. And it's improved with a 2-story house that has a 790 square foot ground floor area, attached garage. They currently have a total lot coverage of 20.9%, so below the 30% threshold. And since they're proposing an outdoor entertainment pool house to the rear of the property behind the house. And since last month's meeting, they've gone back to the drawing board, and you'll see an outline overhead view on the screen, and in the packet you'll see renderings that illustrate that they've taken and reduced the amount of roof line associated with the structure. There's an opening which is a slatted pergola style opening that measures 12 feet by 20.9 feet. So if we take that opening area, and it's 251 square feet. And staff had deducted that area at the southeast corner of the structure. We had deducted that opening and its associated eaves or overhangs. So that reduces the size of that total structure in terms of how we calculate the total lot coverage. So we feel as though we were generous in the deduction of that 251 square feet. Excuse me, in total it's 435 square feet. We did include the remainder of the structure towards the total lot coverage and towards the size allowed for an accessory structure. If you look at the drawings, it's mostly supported by several support columns, and in the one corner it has a few walls for a utility room and for a restroom. If you measure the footprint from the columns to each edge of the columns, that's just about 800 square feet. And they have a sizable amount of overhangs associated with the remaining portion of the structure, including a segment that's 8 feet by 24 feet, and that extends over the pool, and the rendering would be provides you the best illustration as to the extent of that overhang, especially across the pool. So we did not deduct that. We did use our judgment to include all the overhangs associated with that portion of the structure. With that, there is a deduction in the variances that they're seeking. So originally they were seeking a variance to weigh 1,644 square feet associated with putting up this structure and a covered deck off the back of the house. Based on the modifications and how we've calculated it, they're now seeking a variance of 1,210 square feet, so they've deducted it by quite a bit. The ordinance allows for accessory floor area to be no bigger than 10% of lot area, and in no instance more than 800 square feet. I had noted that the attached garage is 790 square feet, so very close to the maximum 800 in and of itself. The deduction in the size of the pool house brings the accessory lot coverage from what they were originally requesting at 19.8% lot coverage, brings that down to 16.3%. So they're seeking a variance of 6.3% from the 10% lot coverage. And then they're seeking also a variance from the total lot coverage. The previous or the original variance request was a total lot coverage of 36.6%. Based on the modifications, that's been reduced to 32.5% total lot coverage. Again, 30% is the maximum, so they're seeking a total variance of 2.5% from the maximum allowable total lot coverage. They have not made any modifications to the utilities that they have originally showed on their set of drawings. They still have natural gas, electricity, water, and sewer delivered to the structure itself, but they haven't made any modifications to that component. Largely, the modifications are associated with the opening, which is above the kitchen area for the pool house building.
Thank you. Is there any other questions for staff? Mr. Clapp.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry, I just have a question regarding the square footage calculation. So I read the report, the staff report, I read the applicant's information, and it sounds like there's a discrepancy between how that was calculated. It looks like the staff report suggests the pavilion is about 1220 square feet, and the applicant suggests 897. So going through this, I understand the discrepancy seems like it's the overhangs. When I look at their drawing, I see like that perimeter that was shaded in a different color. And doing simple math, it looks like they detracted that information from their overall square footage. And to me, when I look at this, if it was a detached garage and if it was a wall coming up with a soffit and overhang, we wouldn't include that information. I know this is a bit different because it's open air, but when I look at like the 3D renderings, you can see a beam. So in lieu of a wall, there's a beam there that runs post to post. So it almost seems like from a spirit of the ordinance standpoint that it's a similar thing. So I don't understand why that horizontal projection would be counted in the square footage versus excluded. So is that what I understand the discrepancies with that perimeter that you can see on their drawing right there?
Yes, you noted the in that salmon color.
Correct.
I'm assuming that they were trying to illustrate the ground floor footprint of the support columns and walls, which they actually did not correctly illustrate in this rendering. There's a little jog in that area right there. There are no support columns under that. They're stepped back.
But they're including that. Isn't that included though in the calculation, that area?
And I'm not certain why they included that, but we did note the ground floor footprint from the walls and the columns, and we came up with 800 square feet. We felt as though the overhangs, especially across the pool, again, it's 8 feet out by 24 feet in length. That's very substantial. That's far different from a standard overhang associated with a normal 2-car garage. If you add up all the overhangs on that portion of the structure, it comes out to, I think, over 400 square feet. That's bigger than an average 2-car garage. So we didn't feel as though that was appropriate to discount that. There are certain provisions which we have to exercise judgment on, and we felt that it was appropriate to include that, just due to the substantial nature when you total up all of the eaves, square footage of all of the eaves. We felt it was substantial enough to be included.
So now I understand. So can we jump to one of the renderings? There's a couple of visuals that showed, like if you want to call it the header or the freeze board, but in reality, there's structure that's holding that roof up. So, I'm calling that a beam. There's a beam that runs, like you can see that white line that kind of runs from column to column, and I get there, it kind of runs below that waterfall feature. So I'm looking at that as that's kind of like the wall location In my mind, just from
Yes,
a
and-
spirit standpoint, I'm looking at that as that's the defined area they included.
Yes.
And then everything outside of that, in my mind, seems like it should be discounted because it's kind of like a garage or like a home. Excuse me.
Yes,
Like an
and-
overhang on a house that we would exclude.
You certainly have the opportunity to view it in that light. As staff, we felt differently. There are a variety of accessory structures that could be imagined. A carport has 2 support columns, and it has oftentimes an overhang that goes far beyond it. By the logic, there could be, I've never seen one, but there theoretically could be an accessory structure where it's simply a center column and then an umbrella-style roof line of
Yeah.
potentially very large size that we would probably exercise including that in a calculation, despite the fact that it didn't have identified walls on the ground floor or more than 1 support column. So there are a variety of circumstances where we do have to exercise judgment in determining whether to apply that provision of the ordinance or not.
Yeah, I'm bringing it because this was my biggest heartburn issue last time was the lot coverage overage, and it looks like they did dial us in a little bit, so I had the biggest issue with that. But when I did, the applicant could probably better explain this, but I did the quick math using their numbers, and that was about 200 and some, or let's see here, 272 square feet, 272.61 square feet. So if you subtract that from the staff's number, it looks like that percentage is right around 30.2%. So if they exclude that, based on your calculations for staff, we're kind of in that 30% ballpark. So that's where my mind was going. Are they at 30% if they exclude that? So anyway, sorry for the long-winded question, but I just wanted to point that out.
No,
Thank you.
these were topics that were brought up last month, so it's important to continue to discuss them, and they're certainly relevant to the petitioner's request.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? All right, seeing none.
I just had a quick one. The combination of utilities, if it were just electric and water, would that be allowed?
I always hesitate to play
Yeah.
the combination game, we like to call it in the office, because it's always associated with a set of drawings.
Okay.
So somebody could have a detached garage that was very in close proximity to their primary home. Perhaps it could be connected with a covered walkway, and they could have water and electricity that run to it, and they have a sink upstairs. That's different from what's being proposed here, and the differentiation is associated with the drawings and how it's functioning. So I hesitate to play the yes, that's always the correct answer, and no, that's always the correct answer. It's always significant to this scenario and the appropriate or associated drawings.
I have a follow-up. So then, assume we grant the allowance for combination of those, and they live in this house 5, 10 years, whatever. Next owners come in, or even them, decide, you know what, we're gonna not use the pool anymore, fill it in, have this now as an accessory use and just enclose it. Would they then have to come back to allow it to be a habitable space with, like, say, a kitchen and a bedroom in it, or would it be already allowed because of we've already granted the multi-utilities?
If the ordinance did not change between now and that scenario, I would say that no, someone would have to come back in front of you, potentially ask for something different, a variance that's different. So you're granting them the variances specific to this set of drawings. And as Mr. Bohorsky had pointed out, I believe last month, we do have some mechanisms in the Community Development Office which would allow us to certainly to view it on a regular basis and be able to determine if it's different from what you approved and its associated building permit. And then there are mechanisms in place for enforcement. And if somebody rightfully wanted to come forward and do something different, they would have to illustrate that to us. We would have to determine what the ordinance requirements are in the future. They might change, who knows? But if they stay the same, then they would arguably, they would have to definitely come back, or rather they would definitely have to come back and seek different variances.
Okay, dude. I'm just trying to figure out because this one's a little bit different than the location maybe than the other pool house that came before us not too long ago that wanted similar thing within their garage or they wanted the, I forget what
I don't
utilities they
recall
wanted.
either, but I would say it's specific to what the petitioners is illustrating, and they've certainly expressed at last month's meeting that they don't have any intention for that. I imagine they can affirm that again when they step forward to have a conversation with you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments for, or questions for staff, I should say? Last call. All right. The petitioner may come back up and add any additional comments they want to speak regarding this, the changes that have all occurred since last
Sure.
month.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, Dennis Cowan.
Your mic might not be on. Oh, it is?
Is it on?
Okay, we can.
Okay, I'll speak a little louder.
Okay.
This is my third trip to this room this week, so if I have a little bit of fatigue, please forgive me. I'm trying to add up my frequent flyer miles. I don't know where we get them reimbursed, but I'll talk to Mr. Murphy about that after the meeting. Be that as it may, Dennis Cowan, Plunkett Cooney, on behalf of Brian and Michelle Malaysia, who are here with me this evening, and our architect of record, Brandon Bertrang, is also here, who's done all the calculations. So he can answer all the measurement questions. First of all, to all of you, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Secondly, I want to make it very clear to all of you, we did listen to the things you had to say, and made some decisions to reduce the amount of roof on the facility, on the recreation area. And we think that was very important. We felt we had to come back to you in good faith was to make some movement in that particular area. We still firmly believe that the eaves and overhangs don't fit the definition of building area in 770.8, the definition. And reasonable minds may differ on that because it's basically measured from the headers as we did it. And if you take that out, we're under the 30%. That's about 400 square feet. Now, what are the reason for the eaves and the overhangs? One thing we do agree on is there's only 800 square feet of floor area. That's what the city agrees, and we agree with that. But where there's disagreement on counting these eaves, but what are the eaves and overhangs needed for? Well, the one overhang in particular is just over the pool area. It's not even over the 800 square feet. And the eaves, we have to have those because we have to direct the water away from the concrete, or if we don't have any kind of eaves, that water is going to drop right down through what will become a seam and undercut the entire area, outdoor area, and eventually it's going to lead to cracking of the concrete. And that's just, that's unnecessary to happen. That's why houses have eaves. They also have gutters, but many do, and garages and other, even commercial facilities have eaves, is to divert the water away. So there's not a benefit to the project and to our clients except to protect the investment by having the water diverted away with the eaves. And of course there is the overhang. Again, that's to provide a little bit of shade in the pool area. That's all that's for. It's not over the 800 square feet of actual space. So we believe we come in under the 30%. Look, I'll admit to you, and I shouldn't do this as a lawyer, but it is a gray area. And we believe we've dealt in good faith. We have come to you to reduce the amount of roof area, and we believe we certainly meet if not the intent, but the spirit of the ordinance in making that reduction and in not including the eaves and the overhang in the calculation. So that brings us under 30%. So we would, I've been concentrating on that because that's the biggest area of, I think, of concern that you certainly had, and we believe we've acted in very good faith in reducing that area. So a couple other things real quickly. With respect to the utilities, as I mentioned last time, all the utilities that we've mentioned maybe with the exception of sanitary sewer, are already going to be in the backyard. Water, obviously, because we have a pool full of water. Gas we need because it's going to be a heated pool, and so you have gas. Third will be electric, which already exists. So the only thing we're really asking for is the sanitary. The difference is, of course, they come to one space. As I've said, and I think Joe has pointed out, our client doesn't have any intent of using this for a living area. They've got a beautiful home. They don't need this for a living area at all. And they don't need it as a mother-in-law suite or anything like that. And it certainly will be used because of the fire pit that's there, or the fireplace in the winter, or unless Mr. Belasia jokingly said, I get sent to the outhouse because I haven't done something I'm supposed to do. So the point is that we've, those utilities, yes, they will be in existence, but the purpose is not to become a permanent living area. And we've agreed, if you want to make it a condition, that you can certainly put that in a resolution, you're allowed to, or that we have no intent to rent to, pools a go-go or Airbnb so people can come use the pool or use the facility, use their home. That's not something they want to do. This is for their family. Obviously, when you make this kind of investment, you're going to have a stay vacation instead of doing a lot of traveling the next several years, and that's clearly what their intent is. The only other one thing I'd like to mention, and then certainly answer any of your questions, is that we did pass a petition or attach a petition. All the neighbors immediately around the Belasias are in support of this. I think that's important. None of them feel it's a threat to them or to their property values or to their, their lives at their home. So I think that's important. Many times we do have neighborhood opposition, and it is justified. In this instance, we don't have any of that at all. So I'll leave it at that. This is our second trip here. I think you're pretty familiar with the proposal, but we're certainly willing, any of us, to answer any questions that you may have about the variances that we're requesting. So we respectfully ask you to approve the variances that we've requested. We've reduced 3 of the 4 variances by making the changes that we made, and I think that's an important sign of good faith also. Thank you.
All right. Is there any questions for the petitioner? Mr. Reddy.
Hello. Thank you for making the reductions, first off. So I had a question. When you refer to 800 square feet of ground floor, I see that on the drawing A.07, it lists 897. Is that what you're referring to?
No, I was referring to the staff report.
Okay.
The staff report, I believe, said 800 on the second, it was at the second page or first page?
We can hover over the area on the screen. The columns to the wall.
That 97 might include that area over the pool.
Okay.
Yeah.
It says that the ground, that the structure has a ground floor area of approximately 800 square feet when measured at the outside edge of each support column. I think the difference is in measurement.
Okay, because I was just,
Yeah.
I thought the difference was on drawing A06, it has the square footages that are requested in the request, and then A07 has a reduced amount.
So I can answer all these questions for you.
And I'll just give you the reason why I'm asking
Yeah.
that.
If
Just
you'd
to
like
get an
this, I
idea.
can give this to you.
What's up?
This shows exactly how it's calculated.
Okay.
The math's right.
Okay.
I guarantee. Essentially what we did in case of the overhang that extended over the pool, generally speaking, an eave is up to 3 feet usually. So while the one that did extend over the pool is longer, it's a cantilever to go over the pool and provide some shade, we felt it appropriate that we could reduce 3 feet because that's generally an allotted amount for an eave. And again, that's over a pool, which isn't counted towards square footage regardless. But that highlights all the math. If anyone else wants to see this here, I have a couple copies. That's the gist of it, but any other questions on the math, I'm more than happy to answer.
I see what so it's that not, this 90 feet is the difference between 897 and 800?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. And that's, effectively the dimension that you see, which is 5 feet, is all part of the cantilever over the pool. However, we felt it appropriate that, because we're allotted up to 3 feet of overhang, that we could reduce it from the request because, up to 3 feet's generally allowed. One thing I wanted to point out as well, I know there's, a lot of different comparisons that, questions of what we compare it to, but the most common thing that we deal with is like front porches. And any front porch, open air front porch, it's the most common structure to an open air pavilion like this. And I mean, most houses have front porches, they're on their plot plans, they're generally above a basement foundation, everything like that, and overhangs are not generally counted on that. So I understand that that's the parallel that we generally take when designing these structures, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the reason I ask is what I'm trying to consider is, suppose we leave aside the consideration of the eaves and variance D. So that would, then by your calculations, it'd be under 30%. We would still have A, so I'm trying to figure out, considering that, what would be the square footage there. So that was the reason for my question. Then the follow-up question is, where I think I'm going to have some trouble deciding is just concluding that this is that a lesser relaxation than what is requested would not give relief. So it's, this is great, but is it not possible to have anything smaller?
I mean, that's the same question that goes to any ZBA. Can you build a smaller house? Can you build a smaller garage?
Yeah, well,
I'll let Dennis probably take over that one.
Okay.
But realistically, when we design outdoor spaces, what we try to do is make functional space like very similar to the footprint of a room. So a standard family room with a fireplace, like the minimum that I generally want is like 15 feet. And we view each interior space as like essentially a room. So it's something that I did discuss with my clients. Yes, you can eliminate a section because it becomes at some point not functional to build it. But that's not something it doesn't make practical sense. You'd get rid of the kitchen space then in general as its entirety. But the sizes that we have proposed here are definitely the minimum sizes necessary for the intended use of the spaces.
Yeah, I would only add that whether you take the 897, as we pointed out, we're under 30%, or the 800 of this actual usable area, both of those get us under 30%. Right. So therefore, we don't have an issue with making anything smaller. It's only when we take into account these eaves and overhangs, which again are primarily for water diversion, the eaves obviously, that we go over the 30%. So we feel we're certainly meeting the intent certainly the spirit, if not the intent of the ordinance.
Yeah, for request D, but for request A and B, there would still be a...
Right, there'd still be
required. So I'm just trying to consider what that level is, if we weren't worried about D. And then the other item I had is, what is it unique about this lot that requires the combination of utilities? Because it has to be unique to the lot, right? We can't just say, so that would be my question.
Well, I don't know if it's uniqueness of the lot as much as it's uniqueness of the use within the lot. Okay. And that in order to have those functions in the lot, in order to have the functions we're building, that's why we need it. It's not like we just want to bring different utilities in. They're all for a purpose to be able to utilize the recreational area appropriately with the different uses.
Okay, so anyone who would be building a pool on their lot would have a similar grounds for a request?
I I don't know. I know what we're asking for, so I'll
Okay.
just restrict
Well,
it to
I'm just trying to-
But I don't think you're, I mean, you have to take each case on its merit. I don't know how many pool pavilions we've ever had that have come up. This is the first one I know of in my time, and, either working for the city or with the city or appearing before them. So I think these would probably be pretty rare in terms of you're not opening the floodgates for that kind of activity. But again, people, if you're asking for one thing, if you're asking about the utilities coming, people can have these utilities in their backyard, and many do. We have gas fireplaces, gas kitchen areas that people have. They certainly have electricity in their backyard, certainly have water in their backyard. I don't know how many people have sanitary sewer and have additional bathrooms, but all those utilities can be taken in any backyard. It's just that ours are going into an 800 square foot area. Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
So last time we were here, you guys also asked in terms of the utilities. So we have gas in the backyard currently, and then we had looked at putting in, like what were the alternatives for putting in a bathroom? And the reality is, given the foundation, we'd actually have to build a ramp, which would create greater lot coverage. So our thought was here, as we mentioned last time, we have elderly parents and relatives. Like, we're tight-knit families, so I wouldn't make my mother-in-law live out there. I like her, and I want her to live in a place with walls. But we tried to build a pavilion where we could spend a lot of family time together. And as I mentioned, we've had some family tragedies over the last couple of years, and this was kind of our thought of how we could have a space in the backyard. Again, those utilities in our yard are already back there. We already have a gas line back there for a gas grill, just not in that particular spot. It's oddly enough like kind of by the fence line. So we already have those utilities except for sewer, and the goal here was just to be able to run the utilities so that we could have family have a ADA bathroom in the backyard that does not require you to go up a ramp or up extra stairs, but still be able to participate.
thank you. Any other questions for the petitioner? Mr. Moore?
Is the gas line used for something other than the fireplace?
Oh, yeah, we'll be heating, the gas line needs to be used to heat the pool.
Okay.
Yeah, to heat the water, right. And I believe, is it some water going to be kept in and heated during the?
The spot can, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about how that works, but yeah, but we do need it to heat the pool so that they, can use it in the spring and later on in the fall, or, in the early fall. So the gas would be used for that purpose also.
Yeah, the other thing to note is that the bathroom has to be winterized. The pipes have to be flushed, so it's not going to be a livable space that gets used around the year round.
Okay.
So
Well, then you can't be sent to the outhouse.
Michelle might still.
Not during the winter.
A hot tub.
Yeah.
Other questions for the petitioner? All right, seeing none.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, we are down one member, so I will ask you after public comment whether or not we want to go forward or not. You don't have to answer right now, just
Right.
in a second. Is there anyone to speak upon this issue for public comment? Going once, twice, all right, 3 times. We will close public comment on this. Would you like us to proceed or hold off another month?
My clients would like to proceed.
Okay, we will bring it to this side of the board and discuss and our motion. Who'd like the first crack? As Mr. Klatt, was that?
That was a cough at first, but.
Mr. Reddy?
I didn't want to necessarily make a motion. I just thought I could just start off some discussion. I mean, kind of along the lines of what I was questioning the petitioner is, this seems like a lot, like it seems like it would be possible to have a pool house with fewer variances. And I can see the argument regarding the total lot coverage. Even so, the accessory structure, even if we discount the existing garage, the one on its own would require a variance, and that's on top of the one that's already there. And then we're going to have another lot coverage. It seems like it would be possible to enjoy a pool on a lot this size without a structure of this size, to me. So I just wanted to throw that off. I'm not necessarily making a motion, but.
All right. Other comments? Motions? Mr. Klatt?
For the sake of discussion, I'll make a motion to approve all 4 variances.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Gavin?
Move things.
Mr. Collette?
Well, number one, I appreciate you reaching out to your neighbors. Looks like there's no opposition here, so thank you for doing that. Number two, I appreciate you listening to some of our concerns from last time and making some adjustments to the plan, so thank you. I can tell that, looking at, based on my initial concern was the lot coverage and square footage. And based on my observation or my analysis of that, I think you've met the spirit of that. I think it's less than 30%, so in my opinion, item D or number 4 here goes away. So I'm looking at 3. And if I look at these other cases, these other items here, it looks like there's been substantial reduction, where I think initially it was item 1 was waive 1644, the maximum allowable accessory structure ground floor. Now that's down to 1209.9, so a 434 square foot reduction. Item 2 is waived 9.8 square feet of the maximum allowable accessory lot coverage. Now that's at 6.3, so that's a 3.5% reduction. And we still have there's no change here to the combination of utilities, but I don't see that as an issue. There's some good observations that were made. Those utilities are already there, they're already being used. So those are my justifications for it. I think this is a large lot scenario here, and I think the lots can support it. I think it's generally concealed from the public way. Neighbors have no opposition to it, so that's why I support it.
All right, Mr. Gavin?
I seconded it mostly so that we can have a motion on the table and see if we can reach some sort of vote on this. But I will say that I do understand and agree with a lot of what Mr. Klatt has laid out, but it's just the combination of utilities plus, I know there's all this ambiguity about the eaves and looking at the ordinance, it really could be read either way. But in my mind, our staff is in charge of interpreting and enforcing this ordinance, so I rely on their interpretation of it. So this is just pushing the amount of what I would normally be okay with, even though it's in a large lot district. But I still think I'm going to come down in favor of it. But it's giving me pause. So that's where I'm at. I just I know I could go through the factors, but I'm still waffling a little bit. So I'd be interested to hear what other people on the board have to say too.
I think I saw Ms. Robinson next.
I love this plan. When I saw this, I thought this was a really cool looking backyard, really lovely. Thank you very much for bringing down those numbers some to make it a little bit more in line with what we like. I do have a problem with the combination of utilities, and I really feel like we're walking on a slippery slope right there. Not only, yes, there's electric already in the backyard, yes, you're going to have water for the pool, yes, people have gas grills, we have gas in the backyard, but when you put a sewer in, you're digging down deep, you're putting something in that's permanently with this property. And I know that you have no intentions of having it to be a B&B or anybody living there or another house being there, but it seems to me that we're kind of getting close to saying that could easily become, I'm talking 20 years down the road or whatever, an accessory structure that could be a dwelling that people could live there. And that concerns me, that we're kind of pushing that, we're almost rezoning it by means of this passing of the variance, saying 2 houses could be there. And right now, the way this is a single family lot. It just concerns me that we're pushing that limit.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes, so good.
I'll try. I have the same concerns that Ms. Robinson does. I think we've been pretty stringent on our refusals to grant variances on the combination of utilities, and also looking at the requirements for non-use variances. I don't think any of them are met. I love the design. I'd love to say, yeah, go ahead, but I don't think there's anything here that would allow us to, so I think I'll have to vote against it.
Other comments? Mr. Reddy, was that you?
Yeah. I'll just clarify a little what I was thinking about. Mr. Cowan mentioned, I think the eaves were necessary because, obviously you need to protect the concrete from the water falling off. But if the footprint were smaller, then the eaves would also be in, and it would all be smaller. So that's where I'm coming down as far as the lesser relief would possibly do justice. And also that it's unique to the property. Like, this is a pretty regularly shaped property. I don't see why there's a special concern here regarding these square footages. So I'm somewhat less concerned about the combination of utilities because it clearly states it's for, like, if it's being converted to living space, and since there aren't walls, I'm not, I'm kind of on the fence about that still a little bit. But anyway, that was it for me.
Other comments? Mrs. Grant?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like we are pretty stringent on the combination of utilities when it comes to spaces that could be livable, and I feel like this is clearly not a livable space, so I guess I don't really have as much of a concern, like he said, about that as we normally would on like a detached garage with a second story or something like that, where they could, someone could live up there. Like, it's clearly not possible with this situation.
Mr. Gutton?
Yeah, and I don't know if this has really added anything. It's been on my mind, which is that, however you look at those eaves and whether or not you factor them in, that 30% line in the large lot district, it's more like a guideline that this board has been using for these large lot districts and looking at, like, well, you're not over the 30%. But that's not actually the rule in the ordinance. The rule in the ordinance is the 800. So, whether or not you're including those eaves or not, at the very least, it's in the ballpark. It's still. But on the other hand, it's in the ballpark of that 30%. But there's no like hardline rule on that. It's just what we've been using as a guide. Whereas, just looking at it from the overall view of, like, yes, this is a very large, increase in the square footage of lot coverage. I think that's one of the things that's been giving me pause too, is that, and I do appreciate the attempts that the petitioners have made to bring that down. And I think, I think other board members have made good points on the combination of utilities, and that it does give me less pause. I think it's the size, but I still think I'll come down in favor of this, but there we go. I just wanted to add my thoughts.
All right, any other comments? I know I'm waffling on some things too, or not. I think it's a beautiful looking design. Very envious. I can't do something like that in my own backyard. The combination of utilities, I think the uniqueness of this site compared to other ones that have come before us, besides the fact that it's obvious that there's no way that this could turn into a livable structure, and as staff had pointed out that if any kind of conversion was to go on, they would spot it and flag them on it, or they would have to come before us if they wanted to do something. That helps a little bit. The other thing that helps is that it already has the gas back there, like they said. It already has the water back there. The only thing they're adding that it doesn't have already back there is sewer. And in this case, the uniqueness is they have living in-laws that are with them that would need ADA access. And like they said, if they put it on the back of their house, they'd have to do a ramp and take up more square footage in the yard than if they did with this. So in that uniqueness, I'm willing to be all right with that combination of utilities in this case. The overhangs, I can see both points, staff's point as well as the discussion's point. It's right there near that 30. It's a large lot. in a large lot district, we usually give a little bit more leeway sometimes on that. I mean, if you think about this compared to like, think about some of the houses that come to us that are 4,000 square feet with their 3-car garages. It's very much similar to that. Instead of it being the house, they're throwing all their square footage towards their accessory, which happens to be this pool pavilion area. So instead of having a 3-car garage or 3.5-car garage, they're keeping with their 2-car garage and throwing the rest of the square footage towards this. It's still keeping all their stuff, but it's the same similar thoughts that come to us with the large lot. So I can go either way on this. It is. I can see the argument of it being excessive, and I can also see the argument of being, hey, we're in a large lot. It's a little bit more acceptable in a large lot area. So that's where I'm falling. I'll probably be in favor of this because of talking everything through, but that's just how I felt. Is there? Yes, Mr. Murphy?
If I may.
Yes.
I think it's wise to repeat the motion. I'm
Yep.
assuming that it's what was suggested or identified in the modified report, which is shown on the screen. But I just want to make sure that there's clarity on that prior to the vote. And then if anyone wants to speak with more clarity with regard to meeting the practical difficulties, you're welcome to do that if you'd like.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? All right. Seeing none, then we have a motion on the table to grant the variances as requested in the case of the modified variances of waive 1,209.9 square feet to the maximum allowable accessory structure for ground floor area of 800 square feet. B, waive 6.3% of the maximum allowable accessory lot coverage of 10%. C, waive the prohibition of combination of utilities and an accessory structure, and D, waive 2.5% of the maximum allowable total lot coverage of 30%. All right, seeing there being no more discussion, we will move to vote. All those signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-3, I believe that motion carries. All right, congratulations, best of luck to you.
Thank you. I just want to express appreciation. This was probably one of the more thorough discussions, and we appreciate it. We won't disappoint. We won't take advantage. But thank you very much, and Merry Christmas.
And feel free to cut it back even more if you want.
I like your photogenic dog, by the way.
Right.
So many pictures.
That was the last of unfinished business. We will move on to new business. Case number 23-12-24, whenever his staff is ready to present on, I forgot to read the address, 1304 Woodsboro Drive.
Thank you. The subject site is a corner lot located at the corner of Woodsboro and Forestdale within the one-family large lot residential zoning district. The property itself is over 16,000 square feet in area, and it contains an existing single-family dwelling with an attached garage. The house itself contains 3,646 square feet of usable floor area. There was prior action by the Zoning Board of Appeals back in 2015, which allowed for the current single-family dwelling to be built at this size. It's not entirely clear when I was looking back at that previous case if the current homeowner was involved at all with the previous variance request at all, but of course that's something that the board can inquire with the petitioner during their portion of the presentation. Looking at their proposal itself, the petitioner is proposing first floor additions to both the front of the house as well as the rear of the house. The front and rear additions combined will increase the usable floor area by 706 square feet. The usable floor area for the second floor, however, will remain unchanged. The new usable floor area for the house altogether will be 4,352 square feet after the additions. So the petitioner needs a variance for first altering / expanding a non-conforming structure in a non-conforming manner, and then the second variance to waive the additional 706 square feet from the maximum allowable usable floor area of 3,500 square feet. Thank you.
Okay, questions for staff? Mr. Clapp?
Just a quick one. I may have missed it, but I saw in the applicant's package that the total lot coverage would be 23%. Is that correct? I didn't see it in the staff report, but it looked like the applicant in their drawings said 23.
Yeah, roughly in that ballpark, yeah. It's still well below 30% either way.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, petitioner, you may come forward, present your case.
You want me to introduce myself first?
Sure.
My name is Ben Heller, and my associate Dominic Abate.
Dominic Abate, yes.
And we're here to petition for the clients. First of all, this building's beautiful. That's the first time I've been here. Congratulations on having such a nice place to do this. And essentially, I think Mr. Klatt hit on one of the major points that we have in this situation is we do comply on with all zoning, all setbacks, lot size, lot coverage, everything except the square footage rule. And it's my understanding that this was a spec house, that the clients did purchase it as they were finishing the spec house up, but that they were not involved in the initial overall design of the home and the variance that happened originally. And the home happens to have, in addition, the rule is a usable square footage is what it's called, but apparently we actually double count the foyer because it's 2 stories. And then if you look at the floor plan, you can see that there's a hallway behind the staircase, and then there's that small family room where the fireplace is. And that room is also 2 stories. So kind of what we're adding is kind of putting back some of that square footage. But that does count, when we count the numbers, obviously that, according to the rules, that does get counted. And by the way, totally appreciate and respect the idea of the having this look at, have every home that's over 3,500 square feet, maximum house size in Royal Oak, whether the lot's 7,000 square feet or like this lot is 13,000 square feet, to avoid this Bigfoot house shadowing of your neighbors. I'm very as a architectural designer, we're very sensitive to the design and to these details, and we certainly took that into account when we worked on this. And you'll notice we placed the addition. This is a unique lot in that it's one of the larger lots. It's in the group of larger lots in Royal Oak. It happens to be a corner lot, which makes it more unique. And so, in terms of affecting our neighbors, we were sensitive to that. Let's not push the addition toward this neighbor or push it back to the property line at the rear. Let's keep it to the roadside. Let's step it in instead of running parallel, even though the angle of the lot does go out, so that when you sight down the street, we're really not altering the way the house looks and the massing of it. And let's make sure we're keeping it, not this big 2-story thing that's going to, shadow our neighbors, but that keep it something that's more modest, and that's what you see. And we actually had a rendering done with Dom can pass out copies of. It was an artist rendering we had just to help you kind of see the 3D version of kind of what we're doing to the back of the house.
Thank you.
We did take a package and a copy of the rendering shortly after we had applied, and we passed it out. Unfortunately, I had a sports injury. Everyone's probably wondering why I'm bringing this bicycle along with me here, but maybe public services, if you're over 40 years old, you can sever your Achilles fairly easy. This was news to me when it happened, so I wish someone had said that to me so I'd be more careful playing pickleball instead of lunging for a drop shot and boom. So just as a side public service to kind of solve the mystery here. But anyways, because of my injury, I didn't get a chance to circle back with the people, but we did make the effort to go to every neighbor. Not that we really have any neighbors here. We went to the people across the street. Every lot that looks onto us, we made sure they had a package, and everybody seemed to have no problem with what we were doing. And so we thought that was really important, and that the lot it's a unique lot. And and from that, we're taking that approach to the design to make sure it's not affecting any neighbors in any negative way, and allowing these people to age in place in the home. If you look at the plan of the house, the spec house that was built, probably wasn't a good idea to make all that 2-story space upstairs and lose the ability to have some living space. The way the main level lays out, they really only have that one living space currently kind of behind the staircase there, which once you have the hallway behind it, you end up with a very small living space. So we're just trying to get an opportunity for them to age in place, to, have a home that they can have their family in that is completely fixed with, is in proportion with the lot, and hopefully that you guys will take a look at this and I understand the maximum lot size rule, but knowing that we're only 23% even with the addition to the 30% lot coverage, obviously that was a beautiful design they did with the pool. I remember getting a copy of the email when it came through, and I'm like, wow, this is really cool what they're doing with the pool here and all that. But that's quite a bit of roof, and I know you guys all kind of identified that, and it was interesting as I was sitting there. I was like, you know what, we could do that here without a variance, and something bigger even. So like the size of this addition, if it was a lanai for a pool, and so I make that point only in kind of the purpose of the board is to, when these rule, there's this rule that's added, this 3,500 square foot rule that does need some interpretation by the board. That is in this case is this in keeping with kind of the intent of what the rule was trying to avoid, and is this in proportion to what makes sense? And so I just pointed that out. I thought that was an interesting comparison to what I was seeing, and I guess with that I would turn it over for any questions.
Questions for the petitioner, Mr. Kevin?
Did you guys hand draw a lot of these?
What's interesting? We're old timers. I'm 56. I'm like, we're kind of in that middle generation. We do our construction drawings all in CAD. I'm familiar with Jeff's work, and I'm sure he's probably seen us around a little bit. We don't do a ton of stuff. We probably do 10 houses a year, but it's all really, fine stuff. Typically, that's and we do draw by hand. Okay. And when we're doing our design work, and you can see even the artist rendering, we do all that stuff by hand. When we go to CDs, we convert to construction. We do our as-built to go to CAD, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're the old way.
Well,
that was beautiful.
That was just
we actually have a slide and a triangle, and you can't get erasers anymore. We have to rig stuff up. You can't buy those motorized erasers anymore, and so.
I do appreciate that you went to the neighbors and talked with them and all that. I think, I lost track of my one comment. I will, if I think of it, I will come back to you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Maybe it's mine, so we'll see. Mine was, I didn't see stated, and sorry if I missed it, what the practical difficulty is. We have, our clause A is that this chapter's restrictions unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for permitted purpose. So I guess what is the difficulty with regards to that clause?
In terms of the difficulty that using it as it's kind of I blended into what I was explaining is that they didn't create this situation, right? It was designed by their spec builder, these 2-story spaces. We do know that I believe this rule was not in the original ordinance. This is a rule that was added with the Bigfoot situation, and it applies all the way across all the lot sizes, right? So whether you have a 13,000 square foot lot or you have a 6,000 square foot lot, you can have this size of house. And so it does seem like there is some, that it is unjustly unfair to homeowners that have the bigger lots. In addition, we're surrounded by houses that are over the square footage. Just quickly, we identified 6 or 7 of them, and I don't know the exact sizes that they all are, but that they're modestly, and so it not being, the practical difficulty of it not being created by them, that the house turned out to not have, enough living space really, and you get in there and you get your furniture in there and you figure out there's one little room and you got this big beautiful house, and it's really just up against this one rule that I believe the board historically has made interpretations of this rule, based on the fact that, hey, it's a double lot size, and based on the fact that, the intent, right, is to not shadow your neighbors, not have this Bigfoot house, not have something that's unsightly and overburdensome and all these other things that can happen on the 6,000 square foot lots. But within the rules, you could actually build a bigger roof structure than this and just like a lanai like these guys just did and just detach it. and it would actually be closer to the neighbors and would, take less away. And so, within all of that is where I don't know if I've given enough direct answer to that, but
in my opinion, but
yeah.
okay.
Other comments, questions for the petitioner? All right. Seeing none, okay. As stated before, we're down one person. I'll ask after public comment whether or not you want us to proceed or to adjourn to next month, and hoping that we might have a full board, and we might not. So,
Yeah, we'd like to proceed.
well, I'll still double check just in case, real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. We'll open this up to public comment now. Anyone to speak on behalf of this may come forward? Nope, okay. Going once, twice, all right, close. You still would like us to proceed?
Please.
Okay, so we'll bring back to the side of the board, discussion and/or motions. Mr. Reddy?
I guess, yeah, I'll just start off with the discussion again. I mean, I asked the petitioner what the practical difficulty is, and I personally don't see what the practical difficulty is. It looks like a lovely house with plenty of room, and one wasn't explained. We often have people say this is a large lot district, but it has the same limitation as other zones. Why is that? And we don't know. We didn't write these, but the only thing you can conclude is that they explicitly made it the same limit so that you can't say that a large lot is unique for that purpose. Is the only reason to keep the limit the same. So to me, it doesn't seem like there's a situation that would meet Clause A.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Mr. Clark?
Well, I think the large lot is a practical difficulty at some times. I think our board has granted relief in some cases where there's a large lot and the design is very thoughtful. And I think in this case it is. I mean, I think it's an excellent design. I know we're not here to really police design or to judge it, but it's very thoughtful. It ties in well. I see very limited impact with any of the surrounding neighbors. It tucks in nicely into the rear yard. I just see no detriment to the neighborhood or public at large. And there's no opposition here against it either. So I think it's just a great design.
Ms. Robinson?
I agree with what you're saying. At first, I think when I looked at this, I thought, wow, how big do you need to be? It was like so huge. But then as you're talking about how much of the main floor is two-story and looking at how much you're adding more living space, I can really see that as far as making that first floor flow a little bit better.
Can I make one quick comment that might help?
Sure.
I don't know if it's, we are going to take the dining room addition off. So we're going to reduce, and I don't know if that messes me up necessarily, but I know you can usually take something out.
Okay.
That might be helpful to know that we're willing to take that away, so the front is not changing at all.
Okay.
So hopefully that helps a little.
That reduces
Our ask.
50 feet or something.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know if you're able
Yes,
to
just
calculate
to
that.
point out, if someone wanted to make a motion based upon what the petitioner has put forth,
Okay.
the new variance size would be for, hold 1 second,
Thank you.
be for 656 feet as opposed to 706 feet.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Yes,
Mr. Kim?
I'm sorry, can you explain what just happened?
Oh, I'm sorry.
And maybe bring it up on the screen, the floor plan real quick, where they're talking about.
Yeah, so now we're down to 22% or something like that.
Yeah, I'm real
So if you
torn
look
on
at-
this one.
If you look at the front of the house, I'm on page 9 of your packets. This kind of jogged area, that's what the original front porch of the house looks like. They wanted to square that off with this front addition that's 50 square feet. So if you go to page 10, which is the proposed floor plans, you can see that it's fully squared off now. They want to leave it as is. So if you look at the front of the house from the pictures, you can see that it's going to remain as the jogged window.
The bay
Yes,
window,
sir.
yeah.
Yes, that's perfect.
Yep, all right. Mr. Klatt, I think I saw your hand next.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance with the new square footage reduction. I don't know that exact number, but I
656.
And I see Ms. Robinson is seconding. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Klatt.
I already stated my case. I mean, I think they did an excellent job designing it. I see no impact on in the neighborhood or public at all. I think we're talking about 23%. It's probably 22% now, so it's a pretty minimal increase from that overall lot size. And historically, I vote pretty consistently if on these large lots when we stay below that 30% range. So that's my justification.
Ms. Robinson?
I agree with everything you're saying. Plus, there is a uniqueness to the location of this lot. When you're driving through that neighborhood, you've kind of got a dead-end street this way, a dead-end street that way. There are no real neighbors, and having this right in the backyard, first floor, it's not even going to be noticeable, in my opinion, from what you're saying.
Okay. Other comments? Mr. Gavin?
I'll also be in favor. I just wanted to point out that in their letter, the architects here pointed out, I'm trying to find it, just had it. Subject property stands out as it is considerably larger than most other lots in the area, which makes strict adherence to the usable square footage rule unjustifiably onerous. That's just another way of saying, you know, what our practical difficulty is that we have relied on in the past for large lots, which is that there's a lot more space there to build stuff, and it's unreasonably restrictive.
Other comments? Yes. Oh, Mr. Moore snuck in before you.
Yeah, I'm just going to comment on the practical difficulty. I mean, I'm looking at the letter that they've submitted here, and I do believe that they have met the spirit of the practical difficulty. They have a statement in here that, you know, they're just trying to get more living space in a one-story home or in a two-story home to age in place, and that essentially they have a completely unused second floor. And, you know, I don't know when they purchased this home, but in the last few years it has been challenging for people to purchase a home that meets all of their needs. And, you know, they may have been in a situation where they would have bought a first floor only, like, ranch style home, and maybe this is all they could get. But I do understand the practical difficulty of trying to get everything usable for them on one floor. So that's just my comments.
Mr. Reddy?
I'll be opposed, but I'm just not convinced on the practical difficulty that the house is 3,500 square foot. I still feel like there's plenty of space on the ground floor, so that's why I'm opposed, but I understand why people have a different opinion.
No problem.
Yeah, it's also, I don't think we're addressing the fact that it's already a non-conforming use. It's already larger than 3,500 square feet. So, you know, we had to grant the variance once. But I'm torn because I agree it's not going to change the way it looks that much, but we still have an ordinance we have to deal with. So I'm still not sure what I'm going to do, if anybody has anything else to say.
Mr. Robinson, I think I saw your hand. Or was that a... Well, I'll speak. I'm going to be in favor of this because besides removing the 50 feet there, part of what's already pushing it over is the open air spot that's over the living room area, which is approximately over 260 square feet. So that's already, if you remove 300 off of what they're already asking for, you're getting very close down to definitely probably 21%, if not almost 20% in lot coverage. And on this size of a lot, it's, as I've stated before, in large lots, I'm a little bit more lenient because they're burdensome. And if their neighbors are fine with it because they also have larger square footage and they're not liking it, or they have no problem with it getting a little bit larger, then it's keeping in tune with the neighborhood and therefore not doing anything unjust in the neighborhood that would cause problems of an overshadowing mansion. So because of that, I'm in favor. All right, Ms. Robinson, did you?
Oh, no, I was
okay.
just agreeing with you.
Okay, no problem. Any other comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor signify by the amended square footage in the variance, as well as the non-conforming allowance. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. 6-2, motion carries. Congratulations, best of luck.
Thank you all so much.
You're welcome. All right, other business. Do we have any? No, we don't. All right, general public comment. Is there any? Is there any feats of strength or airing of grievances right now? All right. Seeing none, is there a mystery motion to call us out on this final meeting of the year? Mr. Reddy with the hand.
We adjourn.
Is there a second? Who wants to be? Mr. Gavin snuck in there right before. Actually, I'll let Ms. Zukin have that. Ladies first. Ms. Zukin with the second. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Aye.
Happy
Opposed?
holidays, everybody.
All right, happy holidays. Happy New Year. See you all next year.
Yeah.